family. Welcome back to Dark Woke, your direct link to all things politics, comedy, and culture. I am your host, Janaya Future Khan, champ yapper and frequent nuisance in the activist and comedy worlds. Let's get dialed in. But just before we jump, Dark Woke is a self-funded, self-produced show. We're on Patreon/Dark Woke. I am so grateful for all the support and for you just taking the time to listen. Okay, voice is, who cares? Let's just pretend that it sounds completely normal because we have to talk about everything that's happened in Los Angeles. We have to talk about why it's happened, what it means, right? And where we go from here. But there's a larger debate that we're going to fold into this, which is this concept of optics, right? It's this concept of optics and that there's a particular way that one is supposed to do this. And if we did it this particular way, then maybe the fascists wouldn't have sent their rabid fascist dogs after peaceful protesters. And I can tell you for a verified fact that that simply is not how this administration works. It's certainly, and it's not how government here works in general, but we'll get to it. So let's do some scaffolding. Yes. There's a major uprising happening in Los Angeles. There have been several smaller activations happening before this all over the country due to ICE raids. So groups of unidentified men, right, with face coverings would drive around in vans and then abduct people off the street. Now that sounds nuts, but that is what ICE agents are doing, except you wouldn't know that because they don't actually have to identify themselves as such. I have listened to the screams of a mother who was yanked away from her 12-year-old daughter on the street and stolen and put into a van. Her screams are things that I still hear, right? We have ICE agents that have raided a children's birthday party, like a child's birthday party was raided because of ICE, right? They've arrested an 18-year-old kid who was about to graduate from high school because they were looking for his father and thought, oh, well, why don't we just get him instead? Actually, you know what? We can find both of them. And that's what they did. There is no clearer, right, definition of using the government towards fascist ends or running a fascist government than this. Is there due process in this? Absolutely not. There is not. Are there checks and balances in this? Absolutely not. I was worried that now with RFK dropping, 17 members from the CDC whose job was oversight, that we were all going to die from some like third generation syphilis that is just traveling through the air. We'd have syphilis and scurvy and polio. We're just going to be crawling around and our teeth are going to be falling out. And instead of that, right, we decided to do something about it. This has been a major boiling point. I mean, we're talking about ICE agents just hanging around Home Depots across the country, hoping to grab anybody they could. Now, remember, they said that they were only looking for criminals, but you can't do that, right? You can't do that. You can't only, when you throw a wide net, and if I throw a wide net into the ocean and I say, well, I want bluefish, in fact, you know what, I'm going to get a redfish. You don't get to decide that. No, they're casting as wide a net as possible. And they are trusting that this country's, right, very insidious relationship to racism will play a role and provide that balance point. So it's like, well, he is a criminal because he's Mexican. Or he's a criminal because he's from El Salvador. Or he's a criminal, but he's not from El Salvador, and he's not technically in a gang, and he was a metal sheet worker, and we definitely admit we made a mistake, but you know what? We're going to leave him there anyway. By the way, Kilmar is back in America. I will make sure to follow that story, but he is back, and he's facing federal charges of, gang-related, and we'll see, because it's a very... The way that it was described is highly suspicious. So, you have Kilmar, Arrego Garcia, who's back in America. He was the metal sheet worker that was picked up and just tossed into jail in El Salvador. And now he's brought back, right? But the sheriff department, like the logic for why they're charging him with a gang-related federal charge is because the sheriff's department one day, right, a while before any of this happened, pulled him over while he was apparently in the car with 6 to 8 other people. And he was not charged. He was not questioned. He was not detained. He got pulled over maybe for speeding. Actually, not maybe. He was pulled over for speeding. And then he was let go. So now they've decided that that situation, which was not a situation at all, did not warrant investigation, did not warrant even curiosity, is now justification for hitting Kilmar Abrego Garcia with a federal related gang charge, right? We remember the Photoshop photo. We remember this. So we need to be following that. But these things are reaching a boiling point. I also think there's a lot of frustration and what some people feel, inability to talk about or to have feelings of powerlessness around, Gaza and around Palestine as a whole, and the role that America has played, making every person who lives in this country complicit on some level. And the inability to take action coupled with like this growing disgust. I mean, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. Friends, neighbors, family members not coming home at night. And you want to talk to me about fucking optics? You imagine the nerve to want to sanitize fascism. You want to talk about optics when families are being torn apart, when the National Guard has been deployed. We're talking about thousands of National Guard. We're talking about 700 Marines 2.5 days in. And I'm like, aren't you niggas supposed to be jumping out of a fucking helicopter into the ocean somewhere, or like strapping a camera to a dog so it can run through a field and blow up if there's mines there so that you guys are cool? Like, aren't you supposed to be committing potentially, allegedly, war crimes in other places in the world? Aren't you busy? Aren't you the fucking Marines? Aren't you supposed to be running around the beach somewhere with a weighted vest on? Right? Aren't you supposed to be giving each other really square haircuts and doing one-arm push-ups? What are you doing here? What are you doing here? I'm sorry that the optics, right, of resistance against fascism doesn't meet some of your delicate sensibilities. I'm sorry that a burning fucking Waymo is somehow more offensive to you than child abduction or human trafficking, right? Maybe you need to get it together. Maybe you don't got it right. And this isn't just coming from, the right. Because who cares about what those syphilis having scurvies have to say about anything? No, this is coming from our own. And I know, because it's always the progressives, right? Well, you know what? Let me pigeonhole this, because I do like to make distinctions, right? Because I make a distinction between progressives and liberals, for me. So in this case, it's liberals, right? But it's like, yes, we are liberals. We oppose every single war that has happened, but not the one that's happening now, right? We do support civil rights. Now, we love civil rights. We love civil movements, but not this one right now. We don't want this one right now. Maybe the next one is the one that we want, right? That's how liberals move. So here comes my little matzo ball, right? It's tragic what I'm about to say to you. It's tragic. It's tragic, okay? Hold on, I'm pulling up Bernie Sanders. I can't believe you know what? I'm just going to read it. This is what he tweeted, okay? Dr. King defeated racist government officials and ended segregation through disciplined, nonviolent resistance. Defeating Trumpism, oligarchy, and authoritarianism requires that same level of discipline. Violent protests are counterproductive and play right into Trump's playbook. I'm sorry. It seems like Trump has been playing right into Trump's playbook without people resisting fascism. Where the fuck are you? How about that? Right? I'm glad we did. I'm glad you did your little. I'm so glad you did your little, fighting oligarchy tour. That was great. That was necessary, right? We needed that. But how long are you going to coast, my boy? How long are we going to coast? You want to reference Dr. King, right? You think, I want to be really clear about something, right? Not just is that reference dated, and it also flatlines the nuance, the multi-strategy, multi-coalition fucking movement. You want to pigeonhole it to a few, right? A few moments. And for the record, right? You think, okay, you think if we could be sitting down and fucking singing Kumbaya, we wouldn't be? And to be honest with you, it was kind of like that in LA before he deployed the National Guard. These protests, I mean, you got Marines coming here up and then the taco trucks that were feeding people and their little maracas and their little bongo drums. That's what the fuck that was before the National Guard was called. Because you got to keep people entertained and fed during resistance movements and resistance actions, because these things they often are celebratory, not obviously in celebration of injustice, but what it means to come together to fight injustice. And in those, in that time where you're feeding people and you're playing music, they're getting an incredible amount of political education from the stage. They're meeting community leaders and organizers they might not have met otherwise. Yes, I'm describing a perfect scenario, but that's what these daytime activations look like in particular. Do I believe that Trump wanted this to happen? I do. That is true. And still, that is not the responsibility of those who would resist fascism. I'm so sorry that the fucking Waymos, I'm sorry that the Waymos mean Waymo to you, Bernie. I read that and I was furious. And you know what? I got to calm down because my voice can't handle all the ceiling. Okay. But again, right? This is not the time to sanitize fascism. And if the Kumbaya strategy could work in this time, right? It would accept. I want to remind you that we were doing that. There are so many instances where we've done that, and some of the most beautiful artistic evolutions of the sit-in that you can imagine, right? We use multiple tactics. Now, do I want to see a different kind of evolution? Yeah. Do you know what would make the LAPD fucking fall apart? A little harder now that the National Guard is there, but we could make their lives really difficult. We go for like a regular 10,000, 20,000 person march. I think there was like 10,000 over the weekend, right? Still a really beautiful number. They can handle one 10,000 people march. But you know what they can't handle? They can't handle like 10, 1,000 people marches around strategic points in the city. While we were marching downtown or whatever, I was getting messages from friends who were following ICE raids out here in South Central, right? Trying to break them up in South Central and South LA. So, those raids are still happening. They're still going on. And I would love to see an evolution of strategy, and that requires a little more investment and organization. And but that is an evolution that I would love to see. I was thinking about what it could look like, because there is something so heartbreaking about the fact that we're here, and we always seem to be here on the reaction side, and it's hard. It is so hard, and at the same time, I'm so fucking impressed. I'm so moved by the fact that we're still here, that people still want change. I do want our strategies to evolve. I think that, that is coming, and that time is coming, and the infrastructure for that is being set up. And I know I can get so fucking cryptic, but I genuinely I can't even tell you, I was, let's just say, in the general vicinity of downtown LA to witness in a general way the Marines and everything else, and they are arresting people, they're detaining people, and I'm very well aware of the fact that if that were to happen, it's game over for me. And so this is one of the first times where I also feel protected in a way, which is very, gay, but it's frustrating. It's frustrating, and it's beautiful and it's moving that any of us have to be here, but to get people under this under this administration, right, in particular, to say what you've been saying all these years, right? I wrote a story, and then we're going to play some clips so that you know it's not just me. And then we're going to talk about the Newsom-Trump aspect of all of this. But I, because I know not everybody's a story person. Oh, and by the way, I just want to name something too, because there's a strategy here that the Trump administration is deploying, right? Before I go into that, I do think it's because I want to say it before I forget to say it. And I'm pretty sure I'm paraphrasing something from Star Wars. So, I mean, super gangster, right? But if you commit one atrocity, the world is paying attention to you and the atrocity that you've committed. But if you're committing 40, right, we can't keep up. We simply can't keep up. And that essentially is this Trump administration's playbook. And so to suggest that somehow, right, if we are the perfect protesters, if we are the perfect victims, if we are just, it's the same logic that misogynists use when they blame women for rape. It's the same logic that racists use when they blame black people for being murdered, is that you have to be perfect, perfectly sound, perfectly silent, perfectly still. And even then, you will be blamed because we've seen it already. And the fact that even under a fascist administration, that anybody objectively can agree is fascist with any sense in their head, that you are still saying this truly from the bottom of my heart disgusts me. I am all here for the redemption arc. I really am. But I am so unbelievably disgusted that even under this administration, you would have the same fucking talking points as you would under Biden or Obama. It's confusing to me, and it's precisely why it is so hard to consistently shore up support for even the best of Democrats. And our job is to shore up support for them on some level, because ignoring electoral justice action is simply not an option. If we don't want to keep playing defense, it's not an option. If we actually want to be preventative, it's not an option, because now we are seeing what happens when the right consolidates their power. What would it look like if we consolidate ours? That's the question. That's the question. So I'll read this thing from my little stories, and I was typing it on the plane, and Instagram's formatting was driving me fucking nuts. This is context you don't need. Let me read this to you, okay? And it's a bit redundant, right? But I do think it puts a button in this, in this sort of optics thing. Actually, you know what? I want to go even further, because I want to paint a clear picture. I just want to pull up one more statement, right, or two, from the Washington Post, okay? Unfortunately, some protesters are playing into Trump's hands by committing acts of violence, such as throwing projectiles at police or torching cars. That creates the confrontation the president evidently craves. Waving Mexican flags on television also allows Trump to depict protesters as invaders. I'm just gonna go on a limb here and say that it wasn't the protests. I see. So you're saying the protesters provided the pretext for the Trump administration to do what they were already doing. Can you please be serious? Can you be so fucking serious? We are about to get into how, the severity of how this breaks precedent, right? And I've been to cities where the National Guard has been called, and cars were on fire. And when I mean the National Guard, I'm talking tanks. I'm talking forced fucking curfews, right? And I saw how easily we were cattled and how easily we were manipulated. And so we broke things up and created some structure, and it was just the next night it was so much better. But even still, I didn't see things as aggressive as what I saw over the last 72 hours. Shooting media people and the press with rubber bullets, not by accident, right? Not because you were just shooting recklessly into the crowd. Oh no, you just lined it up and boom. I watched a fucking protester be trampled by several LAPD fucking horses. And you think I'm joking? You think I'm fucking joking? It's right here. I got 32 fucking seconds of this, and you're not gonna be able to hear much, unfortunately, but it's I don't think they knew. This man is on the ground and there's several LAPD officers in full SWAT riot gear. Oh, there's no sound in this video. Yeah, and they're literally directing the horses to fucking trample this man. They're having the horse kick him, run over him. They then hit him with sticks, and he's on the ground. He has his hand up in supplication. He's saying, "Please, Nick." Do you know what I mean? And then he just ends up falling over. He tries to flee. They yank him back down. Like, these are people who enjoy violence. They celebrate violence. I think they didn't think that they were on camera, right? So it breaks precedence in many ways, in ways that are just disgusting and heartbreaking. So to know that, to see that, and compare that to the violence that the ICE raids have committed against human beings, where you're breaking up families, many of whom are American citizens. I want to be clear, right? And this is what you have to say? My friends at the Post, eat a bag of dicks, okay? The waving the Mexican flag on television allows Trump to depict protesters as invaders. They already fucking did that. They already fucking did that. It's such simple bitch behavior to think this way, right? It's the lowest hanging fruit. It's somebody that is like suggesting that there's a way to control this, but actually doesn't want to do a single fucking thing about it. I don't want to take on this big fascistic regime because it's too big and scary, but I can deal with this. This I can deal with. I can handle a couple rabble rousers. You know, my question is this, right? Because, you know, throughout the article, they actually do, you know, take Trump to task is a bit a fucking bridge too far. But they outline how unstrategic it is, let's just say, right? So in a way, they kind of articulate this type of conviction and almost throw it in. But like, and my question is, like, how thin is that conviction then, right? Like, the only way that this works is if we allow protesters to get their asses beaten and fucking stomped by horses and fucking trampled by the fucking guard and shot up by rubber bullets for just standing there. What is wrong with you? Like, I could barely tolerate it under more, I should say, peaceful times. But it was inexcusable then. But now, this is the other thing. And then I'm about to give you something that's about to eviscerate this whole fucking thing. And I'm sorry to my little matzo ball, but you need to get back in the soup, little boy. You're acting out of pocket. Get back in the soup. You're drying out. This is my personal favorite. This one was the most read on the Washington Post, okay? The best way to end the escalation in Los Angeles. And I was like, okay, let's find out what it is. So it says, President Donald Trump did not need to mobilize troops in California. So you see how they got me, right? You see how they got me. They have my attention. I'm like, yeah, that's right, because that's what I've been reading. Here we go. This is where it ends. This is the most read piece in the Washington Post. And I prefer their reporting on it versus like the New York Times, you know. Because they're taking positions, and the New York Times is doing a lot of like live reporting, which is great. And for the record, I'm paying attention to the live reporting now. I have a couple of clips lined up about what's happening, literally as we speak. Okay, but this is where it ends. This is where it ends, right? This is the article. It's called "The Best Way to End the Escalation in Los Angeles." Okay. Protesters shutting down the 101 freeway and waving Mexican flags only alienate Americans who abhor such disorder and reject the notion that people seeking to live in the United States would harbor loyalties to foreign nations. The quickest way out is for unruly protesters to take the off-ramp now. First of all, very corny line there at the end. Super fucking corny, okay? Like, just so full of starch. So let's just start there. Now let's back up. You see this again, this assertion that waving a Mexican flag alienates Americans or speaks to having, I don't know, commitment to like foreign nations. You had fucking Elon Musk in the fucking White House who bought the motherfucking election, right? You brought South African, quote, refugees who clearly have fucking scurvy and had their baby walking around the airport barefoot in the airport. with no shoes on or socks. Dirty whites just coming over here. Foreign nationals, accents, horrific, right? Cute on nice people, horrific on everybody else. Okay, but do you see that right there? I actually don't know how to explain to liberals that is actually just fucking racist, right? And it presumes so little. It suggests that how little it thinks of average Americans, right? I have combed through shit, okay? I have combed through shit. I'm not seeing regular Americans be like, can you believe that guy with that fucking Mexican flag? What the fuck was that about? No, that's you. That's your discomfort that you are projecting, and you're shaping a narrative that thousands and tens of thousands of people will read. You are helping to shape public thought. You should be telling us instead that to think this way is precisely how the fuck we got here. What a dick. I have very strong feelings, and they ought to be. This is unacceptable. This type of fucking writing is so fucking unacceptable. First of all, we're in Mexico. LA is Mexico. Foreign nationals, that's us. We're the foreign nationals. You simple bitch. Protesters shutting down the 101. You're right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Why don't you tell us where to sit? And for the record, this is from the editorial board from the Washington Post. So all of them niggas wrote this. Why don't you tell us where to sit? You tell us where to sit, right? We'll bring a nice little fucking soundtrack. I don't know. I've been listening to Mulan a lot, right? And then we'll sit. And then you tell us how long should we sit before the Trump administration goes, you know what? Yeah, no, we went too far. You know what? You're right. We went too far. Like, how long should we sit? You know what? Why don't you speed it along? Why don't we just get the polio going real fast so we can all just sit and never fucking stand for a single goddamn thing in our lives? You raggedy bitch. Okay. So, I'm going to eviscerate this in a couple of ways. Okay. Numero uno. I'm going to read this thing right quick for my students because it probably disappears. I don't fucking know what time it was. I was on a plane in such a way where have you ever been on a fucking plane so long that is your life now? That's your life. There was never a before you, and there will never be an after you. Your life is that plane. That plane. And the person sitting beside you, their feet dangling at uncomfortable positions for you. But you are a part of the proletariat, so you're okay with it. And you only flinch slightly when the lady 2 seats down from you is coughing because she might be old and you have a mask on, so it's okay because you are part of the proletariat and you are not better than anybody else. But okay. So anyway, I wrote this there. And IG was giving me trouble. But here this is what I said, okay? Because this is a moment to really think about all these activations in the past. And I'm going to throw in Standing Rock because I forgot to mention that one. Or I was mainly going with what was most, I imagine, top of people's minds, particularly in the context of Los Angeles. But here we go. BLM protested police disproportionately murdering black people. Pro-Palestine protests demanded an end of child murder and apartheid. LA is protesting the theft of human beings whose only crime is being born somewhere else. An accident of skin and of language, right? Each time we protested, they called our activations war zones. And you're already seeing that, right? You're seeing that. So most of the time, it was just called a war zone because we were black. This time it's because the Trump administration deployed against the fucking military and the Marines. Why? Where did you even come from? I heard that they're out in Palm Springs ready to get deployed. So they were moving here. Yeah, what'd you do? What'd you do? Where did you come from? That you're just in Palm Springs at fucking spas. I don't want to hear that you're coming from Palm Springs. Okay? Anyway, sorry. Okay. Each time we protested, they called their activations war zones. They condemned the optics of resistance. Every time they insisted on a lazy interpretation of peaceful demonstration. But when a mother's screams cut through the city streets as she is ripped away from her 12-year-old daughter and disappeared into a van by unidentified men, it is our duty to fight. When family members or friends or neighbors don't come home at night because they are abducted by masked men and vanished into the night, it is our duty to fight. There is a time for sit-ins. This is not one of those times. This is the time to stand up. For what good are my hands if not to hold you close, to keep at bay the rabid dogs of fascism that would tear our communities asunder? In a letter to Angela Davis, James Baldwin said, "For if they take you in the morning, they will be coming for us that night." And so this is what I'll say to you and all of us out here, right? May we all know the kind of love that believes your life is worth fighting for. May we all know this level of conviction. It is our duty to fight, and it is our duty to win. And now, right, I want to once and for all fucking eviscerate this notion that if we just fucking sat around and fucking held hands or run the lunch counter, right, that it would change things today and that it would be looked upon favorably. Why don't we go back to the Freedom Rider sit-ins from May 1961? Oh, did you forget that I love research and I'm ready for this? Here's some fucking data from that time. Why don't I make it big for those of us who watch fucking YouTube can actually see it too, okay? Here we go. There it is. That's really small. It doesn't matter. You'll get it. Okay. Do you approve? This is empirical data. Okay. This was conducted by Lewis Harris and Associates during October 1966, and it dated back from all the way to 61. It was based on personal interviews with a national adult sample of 1,250 people. Okay. Provided by the Roper Center for Public Opinion Research. I didn't come to play here. This, and so I'm going to count us. There's three different examples from 1961, right, to 1963, and then to 1966. So we have three different examples. Here we go. Do you, and this was asked of, I'm going to pull this down for a second. And this was like asked of like, you know, like mostly white people, right? Do you approve? So in 61, the approval rate for the Freedom Riders and the sit-ins was 22%. The disapprove, 61%. 61% people disapproved of it. And then 18% was no opinion, which is an opinion, okay? Here was a follow-up question of that 1961 one. Do you think sit-ins at lunch counters and freedom buses and other demonstrations by Negroes will hurt or help the Negroes' chances of being integrated in the South? 28% said it would help. 57% said it would hurt. 57% said it would hurt. More than half the country in 1961 thought that this shit was fucking gross. This is from a sample size, but they were doing better research back then than we're doing now, okay, when it comes to that shit. You know, certain types of race data, et cetera. Okay. March on Washington, August 1963. What are your feelings about this proposed mass civil rights rally? 23% was favorable. 60% was unfavorable. 60%. 17% was no opinion. No opinion is an opinion. Okay, move on. Whites on demonstrations by Negroes, October 1966. Here was the question. All in all, do you feel the demonstrations by Negroes on civil rights have helped more or hurt more in the advancement of Negro rights? 15% said it helps. 85% says that it hurts. Eat a fucking dick. That's right. The entire, this is a manipulative tactic. It's coded racism. It's why MLK in his later days, right, which was cut short by this country assassinating him. That is a fact. It is on public fucking record. Coretta Scott King sued the fucking government and won. He became very vocal in how dangerous white liberals were and how tirelessly they worked against racial advancement. This is an example of that. Now, look, here's the beautiful thing. This subset of people, they don't represent the masses. Okay, in certain instances, I'm in I'm in a bubble, right? I'm in a bubble of we could all be in an algorithmic bubble. I know how to burst that bitch, and I've been looking around. Okay, the majority of us find this shit fucking disgusting. Now, it could be that people are whispering because that's what they were doing with BLM from 2014 to 2017 and 2018 until they all decided to join our fucking shit, which was pretty awesome, to be clear, right? But it was a lot less of that racial animus directed around 2020. No, in fact, there was corporate acceptance. You see, when white people are really heavily involved that way, especially a certain caliber of white person, right? We're actually more insulated. It doesn't necessarily lead to greater success overall because oppression moves so fast. I'm pretty sure that's another Star Wars paraphrase. I'm almost positive. But it moves so quickly. And the point is to exhaust us. The point is to keep us running in circles. The point is to have us confused. That's the point. If they come for you in the morning, they'll be coming for us that night. And they will, and they are. And I'll say it because it's my job to fucking say it. If we had seen through some of the calls to action that BLM had made over the course of 7 or 8 years on law enforcement and the growing fascistic power in this country, I dare say we wouldn't be where we are right now. I'm not saying that we would not have some like major problems and everything else. I'm just saying the right would not have been able to consolidate their power this effectively. They simply would not have. I'm going to play this clip for you. So I pulled up, I've got a few ready to go. So this is from CNN, right? This person who's talking, this is Juliette Kayyem. She's a writer and former assistant secretary for policy at the United States Department of Homeland Security. So she is coming in as somebody likely like we wouldn't necessarily mess with. I don't know much about her, but it feels important to note that we probably wouldn't mess with her that much. And this is what she had to say about these protests that were happening in Los Angeles, right? This is a former fucking secretary in the Department of Homeland Security.
I know, I don't really know how to react to this as a professional because it's sort of like, what? I'm not laughing. It's like active duty Marines for this. I mean, we were just reporting on it. There's music, the traffic is moving. Most people in LA probably don't even know that this is going on. It's such a big city. And we need an administration that's not going to get to DEFCON 1 every time they see something on TV they don't like. Secretary Hegseth has a tremendous amount of power, and to tweet that out with what we're seeing, active military is a statement, but let's just put it this way. It's not an operational statement. This is not a statement about what's on the ground. This is a statement about power and the use of force and the use of military in a democracy. I'll let others debate that, but no rational person in my field in Homeland Security would see what we're seeing and think that we're even close to the kind of behavior that Secretary Hegseth is now threatening against a civilian society for protest and some unrest. I'm going to give them that there is some unrest. And so, again, the White House is just lowering the standards for the use of Title X National Guard under what we call federalization. And now in the last 10 or 15 minutes, Secretary Hegseth, I guess, wanted to join the club. But active Marines, that's just unheard of.
It's bad shit.
In the kind of situation we've seen. And so,
okay, so it's not just us, right? It's not just us, not by a long shot. That's what I'd love to see more of from our fucking Democratic leaders. Oh, I found what I was looking for. Perfect. Okay. So now we have to ask, why is this happening? Right? Why is this happening? Because it's more than it just simply breaks precedent. It breaks our fucking brain, certainly, but this is more than simply breaking precedent. The forcefulness and the timing, right? I mean, we're talking about something, honest to God, a run-of-the-mill protest that happens all over the place sporadically throughout America, like every fucking day, every day, right? There's some sort of little vigil or something like that. So, one must ask, right? That now we get to the Newsom. Now we get to the Newsom and the Trump of it all, okay? I believe that Donald Trump saw an opportunity here, right? I'm rejecting this idea that we are playing into the playbook because, I don't know, some random guy in a fucking tank top and a fucking, face cover like through, I don't know, a fucking pine cone at something. I don't give a goddamn about that shit, okay? When you have these sporadic, spontaneous activations, if that is where your concern goes, right? If your first instinct is to critique, not courage or compassion, eat a bag of dicks respectfully. Respectfully, right? Get the balls in there too. I can't believe we've seen beautiful grown men crying because they've seen like a teenager or a friend's family or neighbor, somebody fucking disappeared, right? Stunning things happening because horrific things are happening, and you want to talk to me about a fucking burning car? First of all, those fucking Waymos were surveilling everybody. They had to go. I don't even like them. They don't go fast enough, and I never know where the fuck they're heading. There's a lot of them here in Los Angeles, is what I'm saying. Okay? So I think, one, we're rejecting that notion entirely. Entirely. But do I think that Donald Trump saw an opportunity? Yes, I do. I do. For two reasons, right? If we're actually just sitting and, aware, if we're conscious of, what this administration cares about, what they want to do, right? And what bothers them. Those Epstein files with Musk coming out saying, hey, Trump's in them. That's why you don't hear him. That's why we haven't seen him. That really fucked with him. And they needed to change. They need to change the tune because that's something the right also cared about because they pretend they care about children, right? And it's not really the right, to be honest with you. But it's people like Joe Rogan. That's like, well, where is it? You guys said you had him, so where is it? Stula, please be gentle to your face. You can scratch your face so much more gently than what you're doing. Stula, gentle, being nice. Yes, nice girl. Okay, sorry. So that was part of it. But that wouldn't justify the forcefulness. No, where this comes from is Donald Trump saw an opportunity to take out Gavin Newsom. That's what he saw. Newsom is one of the front-running contenders, right, in a 2028 showdown. And he knows that. And California, as a state, along with the other coast, is a bastion of what they see as liberalism. And you know what? I can get behind that fucking kind of liberalism for sure. For sure. Right? The kind where We have sanctuary cities, the kind where there's trans healthcare available. We got a serious problem with prisons and shit. We got shit we got to work on. But I would like if people could survive so that we could work on those things, right? And we'll always circle back to this is why we need the need to be plugged into organizations. But anyway, right? This was a chance to attack California and say, look at them. This is what they do. It's true, right? But it was really about really attacking and undermining Newsom. And in his defense, Newsom is doing a great fucking job coming out swinging, right? Because I want to be clear. Y'all know I love me some research. This is the first time in 60 years that a U.S. president has called in the National Guard without a governor's consent. But we know that everything that this administration and really the GOP at large talk about is a bunch of bullshit because they've said how many times that it's about states' rights and respecting states' rights and states' autonomy. We want to shrink the federal government. No, you want to do whatever you want to do when you want to fucking do it. You want to make a grift and a major cash grab, right? You want to do some fucking harm. Some of you want some weirdo Christian fundamentalist shit, right? Some of you want a white ethno state. A little late for that. Maybe you should have done your own fucking labor, right? How about that? Maybe, right? When you were invited to the fucking dinner table at the first ever Thanksgiving, you shouldn't have also brought diseases and colonialism. Maybe it could have been different. But you made it this way. You made it this way. This was your choice. We're all just living in it, baby. Right? Anyway, so yes, I like that Gavin Newsom is taking a fucking real strong position against it. In fact, he is there's actually an immediate lawsuit that's going on right now, right? From Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, and Donald Trump's main nemesis. So California is suing the Trump administration for deploying the National Guard. I wonder if they'll even maybe up it, right? Up the charges, bring in the Marines too, right? But this is the thing that kind of annoys me, outside of like the obvious, right? Do you remember when we played? Oh, okay, hold on, the voice. Do you remember? Do you remember the time? Do you remember when fucking Gavin, right, had guys like Steve Bannon and Charlie Kirk on his fucking show so they could dog walk him on his own fucking podcast because he doesn't actually say shit when he needs to? I want to read for you. This fucking tweet from Charlie Kirk, right? You know what? Why don't I tell you what he was responding to? Matt Walsh, the dumbest fucking dickhead on the Daily Wire. And a group of people who are all ashy and stupid. He is by far the ashiest, stupidest one. I actually am surprised they don't just get rid of him. He's so fucking dumb. But anyway, he writes, this is what he writes. On June 9th, ban all third world immigration, legal or illegal. There should be a moratorium on all immigration from the third world. We've reached our capacity. We cannot be the world's soup kitchen anymore. Charlie Kirk responds to that. Remember Charlie Kirk? The guy who's like fucking 68% fucking gums and the rest forehead, or vice versa. I can't tell. The proportions are very disturbing. The only word I can think to describe Charlie Kirk, both his thinking and his fucking face and his head, is oblong. He's just an oblong nigga. That's it, right? But he poses as this like thinker. He's always on college campuses. This is a guy that's shaping the minds of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of young men and of white men in particular, right, on college campuses that are being funded directly by the government, right, by this government. This is what Charlie Kirk wrote in response that Gavin Newsom had in his show and that Gavin Newsom couldn't say shit about. It's time to ban third world immigration, legal or illegal. We've reached our limit. He's literally saying the same thing. We've reached our limit and we have a huge cultural, educational, housing, financial, and essential services problem to fix now because of it. We need a net zero immigration moratorium with a ban on all third world. This is a guy, by the way, that will not criticize America's funding, right, and bankrolling of fucking Israel. They don't even have to spend the money that we give them, which is a fucking law for anybody else that we give any kind of aid to, military or otherwise, but not fucking Israel. Almost every somewhat half-brained right-winger has something to say about this, but not Charlie Kirk, because he is a fucking fascist dog, right? And that's who Newsom is with. So I'm like, I need you, Mr. Newsom, right? Gav, I need you to wrap that pretty little fucking brain of yours around this, because you helped uplift the voices of this fascist regime. I might be a little bit upset. It's true. I think we know why my voice won't recover, but I'm furious, right? I'm furious, and I'm so unbelievably sad for. I feel. I know what it's like to have your family forcefully broken apart. Personally, I know what it's like. I mean, when I was, I hate being this corny, but whatever. When I was 14, I had a police escort come and remove me from my home, right? And there was nothing anybody could do. You know, so it was a safety issue. And I got taken to a foster home at like 4 a.m, right? And that's like a very small example, right? There's tons. But the powerlessness you feel, right? The powerlessness you feel, like when I am traveling, when I leave the country, and I come back, and they take me to that secret place that's all metal, and there's nobody there, and there's no windows, and you know they're going through my underwear and all this stuff. And they walk away. They walk away with their green card, and they walk away with their passport. And you know for a fact that there's a chance that they could just decide not to give that back to you. It does something to you. It does something to you, let alone the horror. So it's what I'm talking about is that the powerlessness. I mean, I remember I was eating McDonald's after some basketball with my friend, and he was like, he's my homie. It was like 18, because I was like, he was driving and I couldn't drive. So I was 17, right? And we stopped at McDonald's. And before I know it, and when I tell you we're just sitting in the parking lot, this is in fucking Brampton. It's in the suburbs, okay, of Toronto. It's like its own little, like this little city, whatever. And I'm sitting there, and we're just eating, and we're talking about the game, and you know, just talking smack. And then I see there's a tap on the window. I turn my head. There's a gun pointed at my face. Right? Cop saying, "Open the door." And so my friend was like, you know, he's sitting in the driver's seat, but he's like, no, don't open the door, don't open the door. Because we thought that they were going to kill us. We thought that they were going to kill us because their guns were already out and we hadn't done anything. And, you know, then there's a cop at his side. Open the door. Unlock the door, open the door, get on the ground. Unlock the door, open it, get on the ground. Let me see your hands. And they're just yelling all of these directions at you all at once. And, you know, by this time I've had, you know, so many interactions with the cops, but this one felt especially confusing. And, you know, we unlocked the door. I was like, I said, you know, unlock it. You know, they're going to shoot us through the fucking window. At least this way, the people at McDonald's will see what the fuck happens. Cause this was, you know, he had his little windows tinted, you know, and that was another thing. His windows were very darkly tinted. And I knew that people in McDonald's wouldn't have been able to see what was going on inside the vehicle. And that tinted part really matters for after, because so they yank us out of the car. So like we both open the door and they fucking drag me out and they throw me onto the fucking pavement, and my face gets pressed against the fucking, you know, floor, you know, in this parking lot, so against the concrete. And my hands are behind my back, and they handcuff me, and the gun that it was pressed against my fucking head is now in the person's holster, and they take him. And they put him in the back of the cruiser. And I am asking, why is this happening? And now people at McDonald's who are eating in McDonald's or watching us, whatever. And I just kept, why is this happening? And, you know, eventually telling me, just shut the fuck up, you know, this and that, whatever. And And do you want to know? Do you want to know what happened? Apparently, my friend matched the description, not the car, but my friend. You couldn't see through those fucking windows. It was nighttime, and that shit was hella tinted because he was black, but he was going through an Asian phase. Do you know what I mean? When he was like, he loved the Supra and everything else, and I will always have a soft spot for Supra. But you know, it was fucking souped up, right? But internally, because he was a mechanic. And so he tinted those windows himself. I could find something in my teeth in the daylight, the smallest piece of pepper on that fucking tinted window. They said he matched the description. They couldn't have seen him. And so afterwards, and I had a guinea pig. Okay. I had a guinea pig, and we had stopped at PetSmart or something, and I gotten some sawdust, and they ripped that shit open. They ripped open the sawdust. And what was it for? What was it for? Nothing. We ended up sitting back in the car. They were just like, well, yeah, we got the wrong person. And that was it. That was it. No apology, no, that was just it. It was over. That it does something to you. I think I mentioned this already, but I've had the same contractor guy for like years, right? Like 4 or 5 years. He's a great fucking guy. But we're both men about town. So we get down to the brass tacks. We get down to business, right? What are we doing? What do we, for the first time in like 5 years, right? We talked for 2 hours. And because of these ICE raids, because I was worried because he had to go to Home Depot, and I learned about his children and how they're American citizens and how they grew up here. He's, for all intents and purposes, just for context, not being weird, but just for context, like he's he's incredible. Like he's English speaking. He has an Americanized accent that makes any other accent almost like imperceptible. And he says he wakes up every day terrified. Every day. And how he wants to leave, but his wife doesn't want to be away from the children. And they're young adults, but that's what this is like. This man has worked his entire fucking life. He's worked his entire fucking life. In this pain, if we can't connect, right? If we can't tell these stories, if we can't share our experiences, however disconnected they seem, I guess what I want to say is this is a moment too to not simply just regurgitate or share the infographics and the videos and the pictures, right? But to articulate things in your own words, right? And your own experiences too. Don't undermine those things, because that's how we start to really understand like this consolidation of power. When it puts us in a position where we're empathizing more deeply than simply this is wrong, but also this is me too, right? Because if they're coming for you in the morning, they'll be coming for us that night. I had a little thing about all the different times the National Guard has been deployed, but from the Boston Massacre of 1770, right? I'm like, oh my God, can you imagine how dirty the legs were back then? Oh, 1770? No. The pants were crusty. The pants were crusty. Okay? But that was a time when the National Guard was called. There's the events that led to the American Revolution, right? National Guard was called fighting white supremacists during Reconstruction, doing so that one was okay. But then the National Guard attacked strikes during the Gilded Age, which was like, okay, thanks for attacking the working class. Well done, guys. But I want to be really clear about something, and you know, this is where I'll round us out and end it. But the National Guard has been called a bunch of times, right? Like, and when I say a bunch, I actually should reframe, a handful of times. But when the National, so I just explained some of those, right? But when the National Guard has been called in for crowd control, it has mostly led to tragedies, some kinds of tragedies, right? The Ludlow massacre, right? That's the Colorado National Guard and private security guards attacked striking miners and their families, right? That killed 25 people, right? The 1932 bonus army, where U.S. Army troops attacked World War I vets protesting for expedited benefits. They killed 2 of them, right? And then in 1970, you had the Kent State shootings, right? So that's when the Ohio National Guard opened fire at an anti-Vietnam war rally, and they killed 4 students and wounded 9. That is what the precedent is, right? How dare you point out to me a fucking protester that will fucking, I don't know, throw back a rubber fucking bullet, you know, as hard as they can with their arm, right? How fucking dare you? I give a people over property every fucking day until I die. People over property, people over profit. This is unconscionable. What we are doing to families, what ICE is doing to families, is unconscionable. What the Trump administration is doing to people all over this country and seeing through all of the world is unconscionable. There are fucking children right now and people in Haiti, because of this fucking moratorium that Donald Trump has put on fucking immigration, that can't access life-saving procedures and surgeries that they were supposed to get in America because of that fucking moratorium. And you know what? Fuck Elon Musk too. And fuck Robert Kennedy Jr. Fuck all these people who just are so casually, so glib about murdering tens of thousands of people indirectly. It is unbelievable to me. That just need help, or just need us to leave their fucking countries alone. That just need to stop funding war crimes, maybe. So, I will. I'll take us out here. We still haven't heard from Greta. But I did just want to, point out that there are people on the ground right now. ICE was detaining, journalists, right? But there are protests that are happening all over the place right now. Austin, Texas is one where, there are a lot of ICE raids there, and people are marching in Austin. And that is something beautiful. And I think it's so important to remind us that, like, there's a lot of focus on LA, but these things, we inspire each other to action. And that must never be underestimated. I do want to see different kinds of actions. I think, I mentioned that what we could try, because we keep doing the same things. And even still, thank God there are people willing to do something. Thank God. I wanted and want to, be present, I guess is the way to say it, vaguely, and in a particular way, in a way that I'm accustomed to. And I've been warned by, very people I trust and who've seen me through, lots of legal things and whatever, absolutely not. And so I just, it feels extra meaningful to kind of see what we're capable of. I mean, granted, like you're fighting for black rights, and I'm black. I get it, but it does feel different now. It does feel different now with this green card stuff. It just feels like something else, something equally insidious, but and yet far more heinous in terms of what it means, because I can trace police brutality back to the founding of police in America, to the slave catchers, right? Like there's something very American about it, but this. You got administration that is attacking the Constitution itself, that doesn't care about anything, that is just fascist, nakedly so. To march in the face of that is stunning. To speak in the face of that is stunning. To criticize that under these conditions, from the bottom of my heart, fuck you. I can't believe that. I can't believe the hubris. Right? You think, first of all, niggas, I have criticisms of our fucking protests, and you've sat here listening to me talk about them for fucking months. Right? You got, like, Bernie, you just got here. Back off. Right? You think you got criticism, I got criticisms. And I know, and it's about evolving our strategies, not condemning our people. Yeah. That one's going to be a tough one to come back from, but I just want you to hear these folks marching in Austin, and I think we can forego like that. What's happening in downtown right now? I can tell you though that they are they're detaining people. They want to remove people from it, and when I circle the block getting food, the helicopter concentration was very tight, which, there was a very, very serious, breakup effect. And this is how these activations run. I want to play this, but I do want to emphasize, right? Because I guess I'll maybe play the music out after this so that we leave on a high. But, I heard a video of it, here in LA. But, this is why it's so essential to join these organizations. And not all of them are going to be great. And you got to do a little bit of, like, finding the right one and everything else. But it keeps you accountable to something. It keeps you tapped in. They provide resources on training. And it's more cohesive, but it keeps you in the game. It keeps you in the game. We do these sort of marches and your feet get a little sore and you get your content, and that's great, even though none of you should be having your phones at all. But I know that not everybody's doing, intense stuff, but I do know some folks who'd be like, why would you ever? And it's dangerous, but but you know what? I'm going to hold off. I'll tell you why I'm so concerned. I'm concerned that any footage will be used to identify people in these protesting ICE raids, the way it was used against, the way the FBI used that footage against the January 6th insurgents, right? And the Trump administration will pardon all of those little nasties, but we all know that there's not a damn in the fucking world that's going to pardon us. So that precedent has not been set. Many people in LA know to cover up entirely. But again, right, it's not just about covering up, like in terms of like your face. What fucking outfit are you wearing? Throw it out. Don't try to. There's a couple people here in this little Austin picture looking cute as hell. No. Nondescript, all tattoos covered, no discernible, identifiable objects, no fucking belt buckles, no fucking purses that you're going to use again, no fucking shoes that you like. Now, it seems a bit extreme, right? And granted, they'll try to identify very specific types of people doing specific types of things. But, just be careful and be safe. Because, you know, this world doesn't care about you as much as it should, but we do, you know? It's true. We do. And we're all we need. We're all we've ever needed. Because for all that Trump maybe had wanted to attack California and Gavin Newsom, he's also terrified at what happens when we mobilize and activate. It's just that. It's just that. And you heard this a little bit last night, and I thank you for your patience with me, you know, with all the shit. But, you know, there is something I'm sitting with, which is like, I've been here so many times. I've done this so many times. I've lost count. I've lost count. And it breaks my heart a little bit that we're still here. As proud as I am about it, and how little power we yet have to sort of change that. And I say we as in like our little crew, whatever, but there are people out there who we will, and we are. And not just us, obviously. Everybody's working on stuff, right? And we're all going to find each other. We are. It's tough. It's tough. I want it to mean more than it does. And it's incredibly meaningful. What I mean, maybe I want to say I want it to be more impactful than it is. In a more sustained way. Right? But it you know, I can't ever, I will never, ever, ever lose hope. I can't anyway, but I never, ever will, because I can always put on something like this and turn the volume up. And with that, I just want to say thank you so much for listening to Dark Woke. It means the world to me. This show really is a labor of love. We got new episodes dropping all the time. Tomorrow I will talk to you about some of the changes. I think you're going to be really excited about them. But it'll allow for more direct communication and regularity. Blah, blah, blah. We're on Patreon at Dark Wokes, whatever. Hit me up if you need to talk. Or guys, I'm going to say at darkwokejfk at gmail.com. I got so flustered that shit made me emotional. Yay! Okay, just want to say shout out to you, the listeners that make it all possible. Love you. Peace.